Start the class now. So here, in the last class, we have stopped the discussion in the recent trends. So what all the modern technology in the model 2 itself, this is the recent trends. This is the last bit of model 2 section. And here, the recent trends, what are the modern technology we are going to use in the transducers we are going to see in this chapter. Right. So in that recent trends, we are going to see the smart pressure transmitters. So these smart pressure transmitters are equipped with the microprocessor. So the microprocessor used in this transmitters. When I use the microprocessor, again the microprocessor consists of some memory and it can communicate with some other devices, right? So that's why. So those all advantages I have with these kind of transducers, right? So again, so these when I use the microprocessors in this kind of transducers, then these will act as a more intelligent and these are used for the computing purposes. Again, so I am going to get the output in the range of 4 to 20 milliamperes and it has the two wires and it can be connected anywhere on any wire, but you should make sure that the wire has a 4 to 20 milliampere signal, right? Again, so these smart pressure transducers will measure static pressures, differential pressure and temperature. Again, so these have the high range of ability and much better performance, right? So again, so what are the advantages of these smart pressure transmitters? So again, in this smart pressure transmitter, so as I said, it has the increased range ability. That means in the analog transmitters, we have 6:1 range of the signal. So, but in case of smart pressure transmitters, we have 4:1 range. So this much the high range we can get in case of smart pressure transducers. So this is the biggest advantage of the smart pressure transducers. And so coming to the accuracy, so the accuracy of these kind of smart pressure transducers is very high. And so these have self-diagnosing and the self-healing capabilities. And so it has a better noise immunity. So they can remove the noise in the signal itself. And so the ambient temperature compensation. So because if I use some kind of transducers that may use for some other purpose like sensing some temperature, but again they will take into consideration of ambient temperature or room temperature. But so these smart pressures, these will act as intelligent devices. They will compensate the room temperature automatically, and so the remote adjustability of the range. So that means whoever controlling at the remote location, he will able to control any type of quantity and what is the range he can specify from the remote location. And so there is no drift with respect to the time. So these are the advantages of smart pressure transmitters. And again, how do we select the sensors? So this is a very important, right? So again, we know what about the control systems and what are the components of the control system. And so before the control system, we need to have the sensors. So because the sensors only sense the physical quantity, and these quantity will be given as an input to the next systems, right? So again, on what basis we are going to select the sensors is very important, right? So first thing is what the first the criteria is what is the nature of the measurement required. That means so whether I am going to measure a dynamic value or the nominal value and what is the range of that physical quantity value, I need to know first. So after that, what is the accuracy is required. So that means in case of some sensitive control systems, the accuracy is very important, right? So I need to keep it in mind. So if I want to have the more accurate, so then I which kind of sensor I need to select. This is a very important parameter. So again, what kind of speed I need to have in my sensors and what is the reliability, and so how does these sensors will act according to the environmental conditions. So these all comes under the nature of the measurement required. And again, the next point is the nature of the output required from the sensor. So again, we have the different kinds of the output, that is analog output or the digital output, right? So what kind of output I need from the sensor? So depending upon that, I am going to select the sensor also, right? So again, uh, on all the things, the measure is what? So the conclusion is so I am going to consider the range, accuracy, linearity, speed of the response, reliability, maintainability, and the power supply requirements of the sensors. On these all parameters, I am going to select sensors, right? So after this, the very important one is, so this has asked many times in the examination, the rotary variable differential transducer. So the construction is as same as LVDT, that is the linear voltage differential transducers we have discussed in the class, right? So this rotary variable differential transducer, that is RVDT. So this is what a construction. So first thing is what, for what purpose this RVDT is used? This RVDT is used for the angular displacements, measurement of the angular displacement, and these angular displacements will be converted into the electrical signals, right? So here, this is what a construction of RVDT. So as in case of LVDT, we have one primary winding and the two secondary windings. The two equal turns are there in the secondary windings, right? So here in the middle part, so we have the middle one is a black is a shaft, and the shaft is surrounded by a core. That is a camshaft core, cam shaped core we have used here. So whenever this core is exactly at the middle, that means in a horizontal axis. So what happens? Then the voltage induced in the two secondary winding, S1 and the S2, are the same, and the difference between the two voltages will be zero. That means that this core is exactly at the center, right? So once the core is make an angle of theta with respect to the both the windings. So at that point, so what happens? So 1 second, so I will show. So if the shaft makes an angle, some angle theta here, so what will happen here is, so the voltage induced in the S1 and S2 will changes. So depending upon that, the magnitude of the voltage is what is the angular displacement is taken by the core we are going to measure. I hope you are getting my point. So this is nothing but RVDT. So again, the construction and the working I have written here. So the null position in the sense, it is exactly at the middle at the center. So this core is at the center. The voltage induced in the both the secondary winding is same, and the difference between the two voltages will be zero. That means there is no angle. The theta is equal to zero. That means the shaft is not rotating. It is at a null position. It is stationary. Once a shaft is rotated at angle theta, the voltage induced in the S1 and the S2, the secondary winding will be differs. That means again that there is a difference between the two secondary voltages. That means depending upon the voltages, what is the magnitude of the angle we are going to measure. After this RVDT, we are going to discuss about synchros and the resolvers. So these synchros and the resolvers are nothing but these are act like a transformer devices. So these are actually AC electromechanical variable coupling transformer devices primarily employed for the angular data transmission and computing system, right? So again, so these also used for the measurement of angular displacements. And always, so these synchros are used in this manner. So always these are called a synchro transmitter receiver pair. For example, if you are at the class and in the machines lab, there is some kind of machine, it is rotating. So what is the angle made by the shaft of that particular machine you are going to measure by sitting at the class, right? So that's why, so this is what a transmitter, again, this is what a receiver. This is a receiver and this is a transmitter. So this transmitter is kept at a remote location, and first of all, so we are going to see about the construction. This construction, there is some rotor is there. So rotor is owned with a single phase winding, and the stator. The stator, that is S1, S2, S3 is a star configuration. That is a three-phase winding you are seeing here, right? So whenever this rotor is supplied with some voltage, again, so whatever the voltage is induced in the rotor, so again that will links with the secondary winding, and there is some kind of voltage is induced in the S2 also. And so magnitude of the voltage again that is linked to the transmitter. So again, whatever the voltage induced in the transmitter here, that is communicated to the receiver. Depending upon the voltage magnitude, so we are going to consider, we are going to measure that what is the angle displaced by a particular machine or particular machine shaft, right? So these voltages are depends upon the angular position of the rotor with respect to the stator. Right? The rotor is excited by the AC supply, and by the transformer action between the stator and the rotor, the voltages are induced in the stator, right? The transformer action, you know, when you excite a primary winding, again, so due to the flux linkages, there is some voltage will be induced in the secondary winding. In the similar manner, so this is going to work. That is nothing but a synchro transmitter pair. So always we are going to use the synchros as a synchro transmitter receiver pair, right? So the next part of the discussion is resolvers. So resolvers and the synchros construction is one and the same, and so again, so these resolvers are also used for the measurement of angular displacements only. Again, the construction is here also there are two windings are connected, but these windings are connected right angles to one another. Both stator and the rotor windings are connected right angles to one another, and so these two windings are located such that the output voltage induced is proportional to the sine or cosine of the input shaft position of the rotor with respect to the stator. So what I mean to say here is, so I have the two windings, that is the stator winding and the rotor winding, right? So again, these two windings are located in such a way that whatever the voltage induced is proportional to what? A sine or cosine of the shaft position. That is what the instance here, right? Again, so whether that is left to the manufacturer, that so whether he need to use a stator or the rotor as a secondary or the primary. So once the rotor start to rotate, so the voltage will be induced in the stator, and depending upon this magnitude, the magnitude of the voltage is always the sine or cosine of the input voltage. Right, so just I will show one diagram with respect to this so that you can understand in a better way. Here, so this is called a resolver. This is a resolver. So this is what a rotor, and the outer part is a stator. Right. So again, so both the rotor and the stator windings are right angled to each other, one another. That is inside. So again, you can see here. So if this is a sine wave, so exactly the output is what? A cosine. The cosine is output, right? So whatever the voltage is induced here is, this is what a cosine of that input wave. So you are considered this as an input wave as a sine. So again, the output induced is what? A cosine. That is exactly reverse, right? So this is how the resolver will work. So again, I will go to the next. This is what a resolver. So after resolver, so what are the advantages of the synchros and the resolvers? So these have the high reliability and high accuracy with a 0.01% error, and infinite resolution, useful for the operating angle of 360 degree and capable of continuous rotation. So they can operate up to 360 degree. They can continuously sense up to 360 degree of variation, and no rotational wear and tear except the slip rings, and operational speeds are very high, right? So again, the last section of the module 2 is the induction potentiometer. So this induction potentiometer, so you know what do you mean by induction? Induction in the sense the transformer action and the induction motor, you know better. So that principle is involved here. This induction potentiometers are the linear synchro devices. So just now we have discussed about the synchros. So these induction potentiometers are also one kind of synchros, but these are the linear synchro devices. They will provide the accurate linear indication of the shaft rotation about a reference position in the form of they. So only thing is what they will give the voltage magnitude in proportion to the angular displacement. Again, so as same as the synchronous, this will work. Again, so this will also provide the phase relationship depends upon the direction of the shaft rotation, right? So this is what the circuit diagram of the induction potentiometer. So here you see here, so this outer part is a stator, this is a stator, and the middle is a rotor. So I am giving the input to the rotor and I am extracting the output from the stator. And here, so the windings are also designed that the output voltage is directly proportional to the angular displacement. So here the rotor is attached to the primary. The rotor is used as a primary winding, and it is attached on the rotor itself. I am winding the primary winding, right? So once I give the input here, and whatever the voltage is induced in the secondary, so that the magnitude of the voltage will give the angular displacement. Again, the very important point here is, so these have the good linearity only for the range of plus or minus 45 degree. After 45, so more than the 45 degree, so these are not feasible, right? So again, the last bit of the topic is, so these induction potentiometers are the less restraining forces with a higher resolution, and so there are some kind of errors or occur. Those are due to the mechanical asymmetry, variable output impedance, and the thermal effects. Okay, so this completes your second module, and the next we will see about the third module. Again, for the test portion, the complete second module and the half of the third module is there. Next, third module, so I will discuss about the signal conditioning. So I told you, so what is the signal conditioning? What is the necessity of the signal condition, right? So I know, and we use the control systems. For the control systems, we need to have a proper input, right? Proper input we need to have. So in order to have the proper input to the particular elements, the sensors are very important. Sensors plays very important. So because output of the sensors only I am giving as an input to the other elements, right? So here, so this is what the signal conditioning system. That is, here the physical quantities are physical quantities in the sense pressure, a force, or some displacements. So whatever may be the physical quantities, and the first stage is what? A transducer. These physical quantities will be converted into the electrical signal. Converted to the electrical signal, and after electrical signal there is analog signal conditioning, right? So once you get the input from the sensor, so again I don't know whether that signal is proper or not, so I need to do some modifications like amplification or filtering if there is some noise is present, and if the voltage or the current is too low, I need to amplify that value. So these are things I need to do in a signal conditioning. After that, so depending upon my requirement, I need to convert the same input to the digital quantity or the analog quantity, depending upon the requirement. If I'm getting the digital, if I want analog, it will convert to the analog, and vice versa, right? So here after the ADC, so this is what a data presentation unit. The data presentation unit consists of, so that will store the data or the displays the data, and that will record the data. So these all will be done by the data presentation unit. That will consist of the microcontroller, microprocessor, or the DSP. So there are some various components are present here. Right. So after this, so what all the general measurement system components are here, right? So as I discussed, so this is a signal conditioning system. This is a small block diagram, a simple block diagram of signal conditioning system that consists of the stage number 1 is a transducer, and the stage number 2 is a signal conditioning stage, and the stage number 3 is what? A data processing stage. The first stage is what? Transducer stage. You know, the transducer will convert some physical quantity to some electrical form. So that is what a detector or the transducer stage. Right. So after that, a signal conditioning stage. This signal conditioning stage, what it does here is, so again, the necessary modifications are carried out in this stage. That means I need to filter some quantity, I need to modulation, I can do the modulation, I can attenuate the signal. So these all things will be carried out in the signal conditioning unit. After that, a data processing stage. So this last stage is what? A data processing stage. So this last stage of the measurement will consist of indicating, recording, displaying, and the data processing elements. So this is what a general measurement of system components. So after this, what is the necessity of the signal conditioning? What is the necessity of the signal conditioning? If I discuss here is, so you know that sometimes whatever the signal you are getting, so that is too noisy due to the electromagnetic interference. So these noises we can minimize with the help of some filters. And so I can reduce the noise, I can eliminate the noise with the help of filters, right? So after that, signal can be converted from digital to analog or analog to digital, vice versa. Right? So depending upon the requirement, I need to convert one form of signal to the another form, right? So again, the next thing is what? The signals, whatever the quantity I am getting, whatever the output I am getting, so that is a very too small. Whenever it is too small, I cannot able to measure. Again, so the forthcoming element is couldn't able to measure or couldn't able to that data is not sufficient to process for the next element. So in that case, I need to amplify signals. Whenever the signal is too small, the amplification is need to be done. And sometimes the signal is non-linear, I need to convert to the linear in order to convert to the digital form, discrete, right? So again, in order to improve or enhance the quality of the signal, this all the signal conditioning is very necessary, right? So after this necessity of the signal conditioning, the next, what all the process adopted in a single conditioning. How I can process the I got the signal now, how I can process this signal. So this is how, first thing is what? A protection. First thing is what? A protection. In the sense, so what are the signals I am getting? So those signals have a higher magnitude. Sometimes those signals have higher magnitude, and this high magnitude signals may damage the some of the equipment, a sensitive elements that are present in the control system, right? So in this case, so what I need to hear, so I need to take some precautions before letting that signal to go into the next element, right? So here, for example, the elements of the system can be protected from the higher magnitude of the voltage or the current magnitude, right? So that's what the protection need to be taken here. Next is what? So during the process, so whether I am getting the right signal or not, so I need to make sure that, right, the getting right signal, right type of the signal. That means the output signal of the transducer of the analog type is to which is need to be converted to the DC voltage or current, that is the discrete, the constant voltage, and the digital signal from the microprocessor. If I am using some intelligent devices or like a microprocessor here, so those digital signals should be converted to the analog form depending upon my requirement. Right? So in that case, I need to make sure that whether I am getting the right type of signals or not. Right. So again, the next processing element is what? Getting the correct level of the signal or not. Right. So this point is nothing but what? Sometimes the signals I am getting the values in terms of millivolts, so which may be very difficult for the measurement. In that cases, the signals need to be amplified to feed the analog to digital converter, right? So in order to amplification, for the amplification, you know that the op amps are widely used. So again, so these three process, and again the another two process adopted in the signal conditioning, the elimination of interference, right? So while processing the signal, so there will be some noise content will be uh, included in the signal. So those noise content should be eliminated. So otherwise, the element in the control system may misguide from that noise part, right? So that's what those all noise should be eliminated. So the interference noises will be eliminated by use of filters, right? So again, the last process is the manipulation of the signal. Manipulation in the sense. So if I am getting the non-linear signal, I should be converted to the linear. I need to be linearize that signal or vice versa. So this is what part one of the signal conditioning. This is what introduction, just the introduction of signal conditioning system. So the next part, so just I will go through that. The part two. So up to here, so this is the last bit I am going to explain today's class, right? So the next part is what our DC signal conditioning system. This is a block diagram of a DC signal conditioning system. It has a measurand. So the measurand will be measured by the transducer and we convert to the electric quantity. Again the bridge. So if it is a AC, again the bridge will convert to the AC to DC because this is a DC signal conditioning. Right. So this is what DC signal conditioning system. But you know, in case of DC, there is no frequency. The frequency is zero in case of DC. So that is what a very biggest disadvantage of the DC signal conditioning system, because so whenever you are going to measure some vibrations, so the transducer in the sense we are dealing with always we are dealing with the mechanical quantities. Whenever we are dealing with the mechanical quantities, there are some kind of vibrations. So those vibrations are very linked with the frequencies, right? So they want the frequency to measure. So but the DC signal conditioning system does not hold in those conditions, right? Here there are some characteristics of DC amplifier. It should have extremely good thermal and the long-term stability. The stability of the DC signal conditioning system is very high, and the thermal and the long-term stability is good, and it may have a required higher CMRR, that is a common mode rejection ratio. You know this, you have studied in the op-amp subject, right? CMRR, common mode rejection ratio, right? So this common mode rejection ratio will will indicate the quality of the signal, right? So again, the advantages, sorry, one second. Advantages of the DC signal conditioning. DC amplifier is easy to calibrate at a lower frequencies, but it is not suitable for the high frequencies. It is able to recover from an overload condition unlike its AC counterpart, right? So again, we will move on to the, this is what a DC disadvantages. The disadvantage of the DC amplifier is that it suffers from the problem of drift. As a result, a low frequency spurious signals come out as a data information. So again, it is very, so in case of lower frequency, so this faces many problems. So again, these are some disadvantages of the DC signal conditioning system. So after this AC signal, so this is what a block diagram of AC signal conditioning system. Right. So again, so just you need to remember this block diagram. Again, so only thing is what with respect to the DC and the AC signal conditioning system. So just a block diagram, what all the characteristics, and again, so what all the advantages and the disadvantages that we are going to concentrate here. Okay. The AC signal conditioning system, the problems which are encountered in the DC systems are overcome by using the AC signal conditioning system. Right. So again, the transducer parameter variation amplitude modulate the carrier frequencies at the bridge output, and the waveform is amplified at the demodulated, right? So these are some advantages of the AC signal conditioning system, right? So this is the complete theory part. I hope you understand about this. So again, so what are the uses of the AC signal conditioning system? So these are some uses. Just I have copied from the textbook of R.K. Rajput. So just you go through this. It is not a much complicated things are here. The remembering part is there. So just you go through that. Again, the next part is what amplification. So what does the amplification mean? The amplifier is a device which is used to increase the magnitude of a weak signal, right? If I am getting the signal voltage or the current magnitude in the range of milli, so then I can increase the magnitude with the help of amplifiers. It may operate on a mechanical, optical, pneumatic, and the hydraulic or the electrical and electronic principles, right? So again, here the amplifier gain is nothing but what? The output current divided by output or input current, right? So output divided by input current, right? So if I am considering the voltage V naught divided by Vi, so that is what a gain we are going to take for the measurement purpose, right? So next thing is what are the types of the amplifiers? So the types of the amplifiers are the mechanical amplifiers, fluid amplifiers, optical amplifiers, and you are more comfortable with the electrical and electronic amplifiers. I am not going to discuss about this because you have read OPAM's LIC subject, right? So in that you know that the more about the electrical and electronic amplifiers like a subtractor, adder, inverting amplifier, non-inverting amplifier. Those are comes under electrical and electronic amplifier. So just you discuss about that whenever they ask about the electrical and electronic amplifier. That's it, right? The first part is what a mechanical amplifier, right? The mechanical amplifiers, there are some examples like simple and compound levers. So these compound levers are nothing but what? So the levers are connected or linked from one another. So in order to enhance the output. So these the levers that means the mechanical levers are linked to one another, so one after the another, so these levers are linked in order to enhance the output at the in order to enhance the physical quantities whatever you are going to measure at the output. That's it, right? Again, the next is what a simple and the compound gears. You see that these simple and the compound gears is used in the some kind of wind turbines, right? Whenever the wind speed is low, the turbine will rotate at a lower speed, right? So I am going to use the compound gears here, there. That means whenever the low rotation can be converted to the high rotation in the range of 1500 RPM, I can get from using the gears. That is called a compound gears. Next, after mechanical amplifiers, fluid amplifiers. In the fluid amplifiers, hydraulic amplifiers and pneumatic amplifiers. Hydraulic amplifiers in the sense when a small displacement is applied to the piston operating inside a cylinder. So I am using the two cylinders here. I am using the two cylinders. That means one is a larger cylinder, another one is a smaller cylinder at the downward, right? So from the larger cylinder to the smaller cylinder, if I apply some liquid, if I pour some liquid to enter through the smaller cylinder, what happens? It will distribute in the smaller cylinder more and more. Okay, so that is what the concept here. When the small displacement is applied to the piston operating inside the cylinder containing some liquid, there occurs a large displacement of the liquid in the output tube which has a small diameter. So the small diameter tube and the large diameter tube are connected together. When I apply the force or a piston operating inside a cylinder containing some liquid, and that liquid will be forced inside the smaller tube, so but it will uh, occupy the more space in the smaller tube. So because of the small diameter, right? So some of the examples like a mercury in glass thermometer and single column manometer. So these are the examples. And the pneumatic amplifiers are extensively used and applied to any type of measurements, right? So these are the fluid amplifiers. After this, optical amplifiers. The last topic for today's discussion, the optical amplifiers. The optical amplifiers is nothing but, so in optical amplification, the ray of light strikes a mirror. So when it strikes the mirror, the angle of incidence I and gets reflected, and so only thing here is optical amplifier in the sense we are going to enhance the intensity of the light by using some kind of mirrors, right? So that is what these are some examples here: the optical levers, UV galvanometers, mechanical pointer galvanometers. These are some examples of optical amplifiers, right?